Germany and Israel are today marking their 60-year anniversary since first establishing diplomatic relations. The foundation was laid in the early 1950s when post-war German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer first committed to reparations after describing the Holocaust as a, quote, unspeakable crime against the Jews. But the first meeting between Adenauer and an Israeli Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, didn't happen until 1960. And in 1965, despite protests by some Israelis, Germany's first ever ambassador to Israel, Rolf Pauls, arrived for work in Tel Aviv. Here's a look at the special relationship between the two nations.
It's part of almost every official visit to Israel. German politicians pay their respects to the victims of the Nazis at Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Center in Jerusalem. Remembrance of the Holocaust plays a key role in the special relationship between Germany and Israel. It's also at the heart of what former German Chancellor Angela Merkel once coined Staatsräson, Germany's reason of state.
This historical responsibility of Germany is part of my country's reason of state. That means the security of Israel is never negotiable for me as the German Chancellor.
Today, the two countries share strong political, economic, and even military ties. And Germany is one of Israel's staunchest allies in Europe. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, 2023, killing over 1,200 people and abducting over 250 more, thousands of Germans came out in solidarity with Israel. But as the war progressed and the death toll among Palestinians in Gaza rose into the tens of thousands, demonstrations against Israel gained pace. Polls show over half of Germans believe Israel's going too far with its military campaign in Gaza. Many no longer see Israel as just a victim and question whether Germany's support for Israel is honouring the lessons of the Holocaust.
I just can't take the mass murder anymore.
Berlin has repeatedly urged Israel to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza and to minimise civilian casualties. But it continues to arm and support Israel. In 2024, the German government sent weapons worth some 160 million euros to Israel. Critics say Germany could do more to pressure Israel to abide by international law. The fact that it doesn't, says a former Israeli ambassador, is rooted in Germany's past.
Whenever a German politician deviates from the line or from what is expected of him, you can hear Israeli accusing Germany of being anti-Semitic, which is quite an easy way to deal with Germany. And the Germans are still very sensitive to such accusation. So in most cases, they speak in a language or prevent or then do not take a side on any issues because of the fear of being accused of being anti-Israeli, i.e. being anti-Semitic.
So far, the government of Benjamin Netanyahu has been able to count on German solidarity.
We very much appreciate your friendship, the support that Germany has given Israel during these trying times.
Many ordinary Israelis too see Germany as a trusted ally, but some say they'd like to see Berlin reevaluate their support for the current Israeli government.
I think it's very important to make the difference between the Israeli government and the Israeli people.
We don't really want this war anymore. We just want our hostages back.
A majority of Israelis favour a ceasefire deal to bring the hostages home. Despite this, Netanyahu has announced an expansion of the war and plans to seize the territory. Shimon Stein says it's risking alienation from traditional allies.
It doesn't help the Israeli cause the way the Israeli government is going about the situation in Gaza. Period. It doesn't help our cause.
The memory of the Holocaust still lives on in Israel and Germany. But as the two countries and their people change, a question mark hangs over what lessons will shape their special relationship in the future.
The 60th anniversary of the beginning diplomatic relations, is being celebrated with initiatives that highlight the cooperation between the two nations. Now, Germany's new foreign minister, Johann Wadephul, has made his first visit to Israel as top diplomat. He met with relatives of Israeli hostages held in Gaza and with his Israeli counterpart. Wadephul also visited the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial, where he laid a wreath to honor the 6 million Jews murdered by Nazi Germany. His visit took place against the backdrop of celebrations marking 60 years of diplomatic relations between Germany and Israel. On the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Israel and Germany, the German president has called on Israel to end its blockade of Gaza and allow aid into the Strip immediately. Israeli President Isaac Herzog is visiting Berlin to mark the anniversary. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier will also visit Israel to underline the importance of the post-Holocaust relationship. In a joint press conference, Steinmeier asked Herzog to commit to lifting the aid blockade. Let's take a listen to what both presidents had to say a short time ago.
You to commit yourselves to make sure that humanitarian aid can be delivered to people and civilians in Gaza quickly. The blockade against humanitarian aid needs to be lifted. Humanitarian material needs to be able to flow, not somewhere in the future, but now.
With respect to your question regarding the humanitarian aid in Gaza, it is a very important question because I believe there is somewhat of a distortion in the world image. Israel is committed, adamantly committed, to operating strictly according to international humanitarian law. And so our military has done it from October 7th and onwards, and we will do it as well.
Well, let's cross live now to our reporter, Matthew Moore, who's outside the Bellevue Palace, where that press conference just took place. Matthew, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, Germany's president, has just called for the aid blockade in Gaza to be lifted and for Israel to let aid in, not in the future, but now. What do you make of those remarks?
Yeah, this was a strong intervention, if you like. And when Frank-Walter Steinmeier addressed the media here and diplomats, he said one of the things about this German-Israeli relationship is the ability to have open communication. He said that the two men had just had open and frank talks. But we also heard just now from President Herzog, and he obviously sees it very differently. He says that Israel is allowing aid to enter into Gaza and accused Hamas of behaving like a mafia, and said it was really the job of the AIDS organisations to talk to each other and to agree on a way to get aid into Gaza that didn't allow it to be stolen or misused or taken by Hamas. But there you had this moment between the two leaders where it wasn't about the positive aspects of the Israeli-German relationship, but rather them having to deal with an issue where they don't see eye to eye.
Of course, the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas was just one topic in that press conference. The two presidents were reviewing 60 years of diplomatic relations since the Second World War. What else stood out for you in their press conference, Matthew?
What I really think stood out was this sense, if you read between the lines, what these two leaders were saying, our relationship can withstand the current pressure that it's going through. And the reason it is going through that pressure is because, as you say, of the ongoing war in Gaza and the public opinion here in Germany views the Israeli government's action. 60% of Germans have a negative opinion of the Israeli government. At the same time, you have political leaders here in the country saying that it is a reason of German state to be at Israel's side. Frank-Walter Steinmeier said a couple of things. He said it was a very robust and deep relationship. He said it showed that reconciliation and peace can be reached, and he said that it was built on two things. He said it was built on this remembrance of the past, the shared past that they have, but also a commitment to democratic values. And it is that really which a lot of criticism here in Germany about whether or not Israel is truly committed to democratic values, especially in light of the International Criminal Court's indictment of Benjamin Netanyahu for crimes against humanity, which, of course, it's worth remembering that the Israeli government denies, and Benjamin Netanyahu denies that.
Now, Germany's relationship with Israel is, as you pointed out, it's really it's a cornerstone of German foreign policy. So these celebrations are continuing. What else is planned for today and tomorrow, Matthew?
Yeah, there's a huge deal planned. So the two presidents are going to go to a memorial just outside Berlin. It's a Platform 17. It's where tens of thousands of Jewish Berliners were deported by the Nazi regime to concentration camps. They're also going to be meeting with youth leaders from Germany and Israel to mark the 70th anniversary of a youth exchange between the two countries. Later tonight, we'll be back here for a state banquet. And then tomorrow, the two men fly separately to Israel, where they will visit a kibbutz on the border, a kibbutz that was attacked by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. And that is really just showing that bond between the two countries. And as President Herzog said, his father was president. His father said that Adenauer made a promise to Israel that in the 60s to never leave Israel's side and never to let Israel down. And President Herzog said today that Germany was a model for moral clarity, right. And said that it was showing that it was living up to that promise.
Matthew, thank you very much. That was DW reporter Matthew Moore in Berlin. DW's political correspondent Hans Brandt is with me here in the studio. Hans, Israel and Germany have a special relationship, to say the least. The two have cultivated very close relations in the post-war period. But this anniversary of the beginning of diplomatic relations comes at a time when Israel is involved in a war with Hamas in Gaza, and there's been growing criticism in Germany of Israel during this time.
Yes, I think one has to distinguish on both sides of this relationship between the German government, or between the governments on the one side and the population in general on the other side. So between the German government and the German public, between the Israeli government and the Israeli public. And I think what you can say from the side of the German government, support for Israel officially remains unshakable. There is continued, repeated commitment that Germany will defend Israel's existence, will help Israel defend itself against terror attacks from Hamas and other organizations. But within the German population, the question of this relationship is becoming more and more controversial. The support for Israel as a whole is still strong, but becoming more tenuous, I think. And the support for or the criticism of the Israeli government within the German public is becoming very, very strong, quite vociferous. There's been a recent survey on this, and it shows that almost 60% of Germans are very critical of the Israeli government. Not in the same way are they critical of Israel. And in the same way, I think you have to look at a differentiation between the Israeli government and the Israeli people from that side of the relationship.
From a German perspective, how much of a balancing act is it to continue to cultivate this special close relationship with Israel, while at the same time expressing criticism of the way that Israel is waging its war in Gaza?
Yes, I think the relationship has always been difficult. There have always been tensions in the Middle East around Israel, and so Germany's relationship to Israel has gone through ups and downs over the decades. At the moment, obviously, the war in Gaza is something that's really casting a shadow over this relationship. There has always been criticism from various German governments of Israeli dealings with the Palestinian people, and sometimes this criticism has been open, but most of the time it's been behind closed doors. In recent months, and also one has to say very much within the last couple of days with the visit of the new German foreign minister to Israel, some of this criticism has been voiced quite openly in press conferences, calling on Israel, for instance, to allow humanitarian access to Gaza, to allow aid to flow into Gaza. That's also something that President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, in statements before leading up to this meeting, to this press conference, to this joint visit has also been emphasizing that Israel should respect humanitarian law and should allow access to Gaza for humanitarian aid. So some of this criticism has been voiced quite openly recently. But there are nuances, obviously, with this new government, whereas the previous government was more of a left-wing government, the criticism probably was sharper than it is now.
As you know, an arrest warrant has been issued for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by the International Criminal Court. That arrest warrant relates to alleged war crimes in Gaza. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says that he would be happy to invite Benjamin Netanyahu to Germany, even though Germany is a member of the court and subject to its jurisdiction. Is there any sign that that invitation, that possible invitation, might be issued?
Not at the moment, no. That's something that Merz said during the election campaign for the German parliament. He's just become prime minister a few days ago. He certainly hasn't repeated that now in his function as prime minister. I think the diplomatic considerations behind this are getting a lot more complex, and I think if Merz were to say something like that, he would be closing a lot of diplomatic doors. One has to think that there are Arab countries in the region that also have relations with Germany, that also want to be involved in the peace process, and this kind of statement would possibly make such diplomatic efforts more difficult. So, no, I think Merz is unlikely to repeat that as Prime Minister at present.